Hi, welcome back to the Long Distance Review channel. If you are actually coming back, if this is your first time here, then welcome to the Long Distance Reviews. This was a bit of a sort of surprise review. I was actually gearing up to do the new Ministry album, which is out tomorrow at the time of recording. I'm hoping to still get that up in the next couple of days anyway. But last week I came across this band and decided that it was good enough for a review. And it also, I promised when I first started this channel that I would do bands that release albums under the radar a little bit, and not just the big releases of the year. And I think that fits this bill perfectly. So the album I'm doing today is from a band called Feed the Rhino, and their 2018 release, The Silence. A little bit late to the party. The Silence was actually released in the middle of February. But as I say, I stumbled across it last week. I actually stumbled across it on YouTube, down a YouTube hole, watching endless music videos as I usually do. And I'd heard the band before, I'd heard of them before, and I'd never really paid them any attention and gave it a go, and was very pleasantly surprised. So a little bit of background with Feed the Rhino. They were formed in 2010. They're from the UK. They consist of Lee Tobin on vocals, James Colley on guitar, Sam Colley on guitar, Chris Kyber on drums, and Oz Craggs on bass. They released 3 albums prior to this. They released in 2010 Mr. Red Eye, and they released in 2012 The Burning Suns, and then in 2014 they released The Sound and Sorrow. In 2015 they announced a hiatus, and the band disappeared from the scene. Now, if you look back at the statement they released when they went on hiatus, they cited sort of personal reasons and the difficulties with sort of problems in their own life, and they've tried to sustain a life as well as a full-time band. And I think reading into that statement, it's a statement that annoys me a lot when I read it, because it's the reason why we don't have bands anymore. You know, they don't get supported, they don't get the money they need to sustain being a band and using it as a full-time job to have a life as well. You know, people have bills to pay, people have got mortgages, families, and you know, not everyone's a millionaire rock star, not everyone is Gene Simmons from Kiss. So it's these smaller bands that are struggling on the UK circuit or on the American circuit or anywhere, and they, you know, have to give up their dreams and their career because they can't pay the bills and they can't sustain their life doing it. And that's what I read into when I read that statement, and it was a real shame. And it goes to show you've got to support the things, you know, the bands you like. You can't just go, you know, downloading music for free. But if you do, go watch the bands, go to the gigs, go buy a t-shirt, you know, bam. But anyway, that's my personal opinion aside. You've got to support bands or you lose them, especially bands at this level. But, you know, Feed the Rhino, after 3 albums, they were all bubbling under, not the mainstream, but bubbling under a good sort of level of attainment being a band, and it was a real shame that they then disappeared. Anyway, they didn't disappear for long. 12 months down the line, they announced their comeback shows, and so I think they went and did Reading and Leeds Festival at the same time. And they released a video for Featherweight, which is a song on this album, and that was 2 years ago. Things have been a bit quiet since then, but they've been obviously hard at work creating this album, and in 2018 this album dropped, The Silence. Now, their earlier sound, if you go back, which I have done after only just discovering this band's music, I went back and listened to their earlier stuff. I went back and listened to 2010's Mr. Red Eye as a comparison to what they sound like now. And it's pretty obvious to me that they're a very different beast than they were on their early albums. That they certainly had a much rawer, edgier, hardcore sound, sort of a metallic hardcore sound, with very angry vocals, not as much melodies as probably now. They've still got melodic hooks in there and big riffs, but the vocals were always all sort of muddied under a lot of distorted guitars. Yeah, definitely a much more hardcore sounding band, a much more punk hardcore band, I'd say. I mean, they describe themselves in their own blog as a hardcore rock and roll punk band, which kind of fits the bill perfectly. But definitely, this album is a move away from the earlier albums. Like I say, Mr. Red Eye was a very hardcore sounding record, and the sort of general progression through the Burning Suns and the Sound of the Sorrow very similar. But I think they've taken from the Sound of the Sorrow the sort of elements that were on that were working, and you can see a natural progression. And I think it's a very common thing in bands. You know, the first album is always the rawer, edgier, harsher sounding album usually, and then they sort of find their groove. And so when they came back with this album, it is an obvious natural progression, but it's also a much bigger sort of push towards a melodic rock sound than what they had before. And that's fine. And I'm not using that as a criticism. I'm not saying, oh, they've lost their edge or anything like that. This is a good album. Don't get me wrong, this is a good album. It opens up straight away with the song Time Wave Zero, which was the song I actually stumbled across on YouTube, which introduced me to the band. And it sort of has this spacey atmospheric build, and then comes in with a big crunchy riff, and then Lee Tobin's really barked, angry vocals. And it's obvious straight away that the production's bigger, the vocals are bigger, the vocals are more front and centre. And it's all Feed the Rhino until it gets to the chorus, and then the chorus is suddenly this big, radio-friendly, big rock anthemic chorus. And I think, excuse me, that's something they've added to their oeuvre. And it's not a bad thing. Like I keep saying, this isn't a criticism of them. If that's, what you like when you listen to rock music, and personally, I love it. I love. Can't beat a big catchy hook, big catchy melody, big chorus. And as long as it's the reasons behind them doing it are a natural progression, and I think it is. And it follows up with the song Heedless, which is more of the same, really. It has a lot of it's reminiscent of Rage Against the Machine, actually, Heedless, especially in the verses. It's got a very Tom Morello-esque riff and the very yapping sort of Zach De La Rocca style vocals. I do love Lee's vocals on this whole album, but his clean vocals is what is the more apparent, and the sort of where this band has gone. They've always had clean vocals in their songs, but they've never been as front and centre and as big and melodic as they are now, sort of soaring. But it's great, it's showcasing that Lee's vocals are that good, that he can do that and he can get away with it. Well, get away with it, that's the wrong way of putting it. But he's good enough to do this kind of thing. So Heedless, more of the same, hardcore verse, big radio-friendly chorus. And now you start wondering, is this a formula? Is this what they're going for the whole album? Is it going to be hardcore verse, metallic verse, followed by a big chorus? Yes, it is. And it's a formula that, if it works, brilliant. If it doesn't, not so good. It can become tiresome. There's not a lot of other elements going on to sort of look into, I guess. Although they're very, the riffs are very big and crunchy, and it at times can sort of go into the tech metal sort of style riffing. The choruses are always coming back in with huge radio rock friendly melodic choruses. And like I say, it's a formula. If it's a formula that works, brilliant. It can become tiresome. And this album does sag a bit. I'm not as keen on the slower, more ballady songs. And there are a couple in here, but I think this is where track listing is important when it comes to an album. Because although it drops off a little bit, it comes roaring back when Feed the Rhino are at their best, when they are crunchier, they are heavier, they are much more exciting when they do things like that. On songs like 68, and on my favourite song on the album, which is All Work and No Play Makes Jack a Dull Boy, gloriously titled song, but that's the best song. It's maniacal, angry, sort of raw vocals with this huge chanting chorus really angry chorus, but a stunning song. It's something I've had in my head for weeks now. It's catchy as hell, but it's also angular, hardcore, metallic, and really crunching. And that's when Feed the Rhino are at their best. But this album does have peaks and troughs, and I think when it comes up to that level, it does drop off again. And I think it sags again a little bit later on in the album, but then picks itself up again with Fences, which is another huge festival-sized chorus. Towards the end of the album, I do think it veers off a little bit. I think, like I say, if it's a formula that, you know, the hardcore verse, big chorus, and it's a formula that bands have used all the time before. And if you stick to that, after 11, 12 songs, it's going to become tiresome. But this album isn't that long. I think 36 minutes long. So it never really becomes too, oh, here they go again, sort of style. I think the title track near the end can veer towards more of a proggier element, I found. But still retains the big melodies. And Lost in Proximity is a much more groovier tech metal style song, which sort of reminds me of Sick a little bit. Yeah, so really, I think what Feed the Rhino have done is the production's slicker, the melodies are bigger, the hooks are hookier, and everything's been sort of ramped up to the next level. And the question is have they done this to sort of shoot for the mainstream? Because of what I was saying before, they went on hiatus because they didn't really have the financial input from being a band to sustain a lifestyle. Now, is this a conscious effort for the band to say, right, let's go big, let's try and get on the radio, let's try and get people's attention, let's get people singing along, let's get big with more fans? Maybe. I think this album straddles the line between hardcore, sort of metallic punk hardcore, and radio rock friendly. I think it does it really well. I think it's a very, very good album. It'll be interesting to see where they go next, if they go more down that road. In terms of a progression, I can see it going the same way as maybe a Bring Me the Horizon, and I really hope it doesn't carry on down that road that they did, and I don't think they will. I think Feed the Rhino, and they're a stunning live band as well, I've heard. I think their live shows are raucous, and I hope they keep that edge to their playing. And I think that's the best side of them. I do love a big catchy chorus, but the crunching riffs in this and the angry vocals are what makes me come back more. So yeah, Feed the Rhino. Go find them on YouTube. Go check them out. They're a great band. Support them. And they're on tour right now with another one of my favourite bands actually called Bad Sign, who I'm hoping for more music from very soon. And I'll review that on here when it comes out. Unfortunately, I can't get to the shows. Personal reasons aside, I just can't get to them. Anyway, hopefully tomorrow I'm going to try and get the Ministry review up, which will be of the new album, America KKK and Americant. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll struggle with that tomorrow. But thanks for watching. Leave a comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Thanks very much. Cheers.